Being an identical twin is like living with a mirror that has its own agenda. For 28 years, I shared everything with my sister Madeline. Same face, same voice, same silver blonde hair that our grandmother always said marked us as true Blackwoods. But we couldn't have been more different on the inside. I'm Emma Blackwood, the twin who chose a quiet life running a small art gallery in Boston. Madeline became a high-powered investment banker in New York, collecting designer labels and wealthy boyfriends like trophies. Our parents were prouder of her, naturally. Who wouldn't prefer a daughter who made millions over one who spent her days hanging paintings? But our grandmother, Catherine, was different. She saw through the surface similarities, understood who we really were beneath our identical faces. While our parents fawned over Madeline's banking success, Grandma quietly supported my passion for art, helping me open my gallery when no one else would. "You have a gift, Emma," she'd tell me during our Sunday afternoon teas in her Victorian mansion. "You see beauty where others see only dollar signs." Those afternoons were sacred. Madeline never came. She was always too busy with work. But that was fine with me. It meant I had Grandma Catherine all to myself. Then came the call that changed everything. I was in my gallery, hanging a new collection, when my phone buzzed. My mother's voice was tight with barely controlled grief. "Emma, it's Grandma Catherine. There was an accident." The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of my desk, knocking over a cup of coffee. The dark liquid spread across the pristine white surface like spilled ink. What happened? A car crash. She didn't make it. I don't remember much about the next few hours. Somehow, I made it to my apartment, packed a bag, canceled appointments. My assistant Jennifer promised to handle everything at the gallery. The drive to my grandmother's estate in the Berkshires was a blur of tears and memories. Every mile marker reminded me of another Sunday tea, another quiet conversation, another moment when Grandma Catherine had been the only person who truly saw me. I arrived to find the sprawling Victorian mansion already full of relatives. Cousins I barely knew lounged in the parlor. Aunts whispered in corners. Uncles argued about property values. My parents stood in the foyer, greeting people with practiced sadness. But Madeline was nowhere to be seen. "She's flying in from Dubai," my mother explained, smoothing her already perfect hair. "Some important client meeting she couldn't reschedule." Of course. Even our grandmother's death wouldn't disrupt Madeline's precious career. The next few days passed in a haze of funeral arrangements and family politics. I retreated to my grandmother's library whenever I could, surrounding myself with her beloved books and the faint scent of her rose perfume that still lingered in the air. That's where I was when Madeline finally arrived, 3 days after the accident. "Oh good, you're here," she said, dropping her Hermes bag on an antique table. "Have they read the will yet?" No hello, no tears. Not even a pretense of grief. "She's barely cold," I said, my voice tight with anger. Madeline rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Emma. We all knew this was coming." Grandma was old. She was 68. Details. She waved her hand dismissively. "The point is, there's $40 million at stake. Plus the house, the art collection. We need to be practical." I stared at my twin, trying to find some trace of the sister I'd grown up with. We still had the same face, but looking at her was like seeing my features arranged into a stranger's expression. "The reading is tomorrow," I said finally. "Mr. Harrison, Grandma's lawyer, is handling everything." "Perfect." Madeline smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Get some rest, sis. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. I was too exhausted, too grief-stricken to analyze my sister's cryptic comments. That was my first mistake. The next morning, I woke early and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The house was quiet, most of the relatives still asleep in their various guest rooms. But as I passed the study, I heard voices. "Everything's arranged." Madeline's voice, low and urgent, just like you asked. A male voice I didn't recognize. "The papers are perfect. No one will question it." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. And the original? Destroyed, along with all the copies. As far as anyone knows, this is the only version. "Good." Madeline again, satisfied. "You should go. The reading's in 3 hours." I quickly stepped back as the door opened. A man in a cheap suit hurried past without seeing me, clutching a briefcase. Madeline emerged a moment later, startling when she saw me. "Emma, you're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said carefully. "Who was that?" "Oh, just someone from the bank." She adjusted her silk blouse. Boring paperwork stuff. But I'd seen the man slip something into her designer bag, something that looked suspiciously like legal documents. The will reading was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main library. Mr. Harrison, a small man with wire-rimmed glasses who'd been our grandmother's lawyer for 30 years, arranged us all in a semicircle. My parents sat together on the antique sofa. Various aunts and uncles claimed the matching armchairs. Cousins perched on ottomans or leaned against bookshelves. Madeline took a seat directly across from Mr. Harrison, her expression carefully neutral. I chose to stand by the window, next to the painting of roses that Grandma Catherine had always loved. Something felt wrong. The conversation I'd overheard, Madeline's strange behavior. "Before we begin," Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his glasses, "I want to express my personal condolences. Catherine was more than just a client to me. She was a dear friend." Madeline shifted impatiently. Yes, very sad. Shall we proceed?" Mr. Harrison blinked, taken aback by her tone. "Of course." "Well, the terms are quite straightforward. Catherine was very specific about her wishes." He opened his briefcase, but Madeline interrupted. "Actually," she said smoothly, "I have something you should see first." She pulled out a document, the same one I'd seen the mystery man give her earlier. "What's this?" Mr. Harrison frowned, taking the papers. "Grandma's real will," Madeline announced. "Dated just 2 weeks ago. She gave it to me for safekeeping." The room erupted in whispers. I felt my heart start to pound. "This can't be right," Mr. Harrison muttered, scanning the document. "I drew up Catherine's will myself. She never mentioned." "Obviously she changed her mind," Madeline said. "As you can see, everything's perfectly legal. All the signatures are verified." I moved closer, looking over Mr. Harrison's shoulder. The will looked authentic, same legal language, same formatting. But something was wrong. The signature. It looked like Grandma's. But then I saw it. The terms of the new will were simple. The entire estate, all $40 million, plus the house and every asset, was left to Madeline Blackwood. I felt the blood drain from my face. "This is a lie," I said, my voice shaking. "Grandma would never." "Do you have proof?" Madeline challenged, her eyes glinting. "Because I have a legally binding document right here." The room fell silent as everyone stared at us, identical faces locked in a battle of wills. "Mr. Harrison," I turned to the lawyer desperately. You know this isn't right. You knew Grandma better than anyone. I'm sorry, Emma, he said slowly. But if this will is authenticated, my hands are tied. Madeline's smile was triumphant. Well then, I believe that settles everything. As the sole heir, I'll need everyone to vacate the premises by tomorrow morning. You can't do this, I whispered. She stood, gathering her things with practiced elegance. I already have, dear sister, and you can't prove otherwise. As the family filed out in shocked silence, I remained rooted to the spot, staring at the painting of roses. Grandma Catherine had taught me to paint those roses herself, spending countless patient hours helping me get the shadows just right. Now my twin sister had stolen everything, our grandmother's legacy, my inheritance, even my identity. Because that signature on the will, it wasn't Grandma's at all. It was mine. Being identical twins meant sharing DNA, fingerprints, and virtually indistinguishable signatures. My entire life, I'd been careful about signing documents precisely because I knew Madeline could mimic my handwriting perfectly. But I never imagined she would use my signature to forge our grandmother's will. The day after the reading, I watched from my old bedroom window as moving trucks arrived. Madeline wasted no time claiming her prize, directing workers to pack up our grandmother's antiques and artwork. Miss Blackwood? A quiet voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find Agnes, our grandmother's housekeeper of 20 years, standing in the doorway. Her eyes were red from crying. I'm sorry, Agnes. I know Madeline's asked everyone to leave. That's just it. Agnes wrung her hands nervously. There's something you need to see. She led me down to the kitchen, checking twice to ensure we weren't followed. From beneath her apron, she pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. Your grandmother's diary, she whispered. She asked me to keep it safe. Said it was important you find it if anything happened to her. My hands trembled as I took the notebook. Why didn't you give this to Mr. Harrison? Because Ms. Madeline was watching him like a hawk. But that's not all. Agnes glanced around again before continuing. The accident, it wasn't random. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? The day before, your grandmother was upset. She discovered something about Ms. Madeline, something to do with her banking work. She made some calls, said she needed to fix things. I opened the diary with shaking fingers. The last entry was dated the day before the crash. Called Marcus about M's activities at Sterling Bank. The numbers don't add up. Offshore accounts, missing client funds. She's been stealing millions. I can't stay silent. Emma deserves to know the truth about her sister. Tomorrow I'll. The entry ended there. Tomorrow never came. There's more, Agnes said. The morning of the accident, I overheard Ms. Madeline on the phone in the garden. She said something about taking care of it today and making it look accidental. The diary slipped from my fingers. Are you saying? I'm saying be careful, Miss Emma. Your sister, she's not who you think she is. A sharp voice cut through our conversation. Agnes, why aren't these boxes packed yet? Madeline stood in the doorway, her eyes narrowing as she saw us together. Agnes quickly gathered some cleaning supplies and hurried out. Still here, Emma. Madeline's tone was honey-sweet poison. I thought I made it clear the house needs to be emptied. I met her gaze steadily. Did you kill her? The question hung in the air between us. Madeline's smile never wavered. What an awful thing to suggest, she said softly. Grief makes people say such terrible things. She knew about Sterling Bank. I pressed. About the missing money. Something flickered in Madeline's eyes. Surprise? Fear? But it was gone instantly. I don't know what you think you know, she said, but I suggest you leave. Now, before you say something you'll regret. Or what? You'll arrange another accident? She stepped closer, her face, my face, inches from mine. Prove it, she whispered. Prove any of it. You can't, can you? Just like you can't prove the will is forged. It's your word against mine, sister dear. And I have $40 million worth of lawyers on my side. She was right. I had no proof, just a diary entry, a housekeeper's statement, and horrible suspicions. But I had something else, the truth about who I was, who we both were. You forgot one thing, Madeline, I said quietly. Grandma didn't just teach me about art. She taught me about family history, about the Blackwood legacy. Boring stories about dead relatives, she scoffed. What's your point? My point is, I know things you don't. Things about this house, about Grandma's real fortune. Things she only shared during those Sunday teas you were too busy to attend. Uncertainty crept into her expression. You're bluffing? Am I? I smiled, channeling her own cold confidence. Guess you'll find out. I walked out of the kitchen, feeling her eyes boring into my back. At the front door, I paused. Oh, and Madeline? Don't touch the painting of roses in the library. Some art is worth more than money. It was a shot in the dark, but I saw fear flash across her face. She knew something about that painting, something she didn't want me to discover. In my car, I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. The first was to an old friend from art school who now worked as an authenticator for major auction houses. Sarah, I need you to look into something. A painting of roses, circa 1940s, artist unknown. The second call was to a private investigator recommended by one of my gallery clients. I need everything you can find on Sterling Bank's offshore accounts. Focus on transactions authorized by Madeline Blackwood. Finally, I called Mr. Harrison. Meet me tomorrow, I said when he answered. There's something you need to know about Grandma's real will. Most people think revenge takes a long time, but sometimes justice strikes like lightning, fast, bright, and impossible to escape. It took exactly 3 days to destroy everything Madeline had stolen. I met Mr. Harrison at a small cafe far from the estate. His hands shook slightly as he read Grandma's diary. My God, he whispered. I knew something was wrong. But this, I need your help, I said. The painting in the library. Did Grandma ever mention anything special about it? He looked up sharply. She did, actually. About a month ago, she had me update her will. Said something about important papers being where the roses never fade. My heart raced. The painting. I'd always wondered why Grandma insisted it never be moved, never be cleaned by anyone but her. Mr. Harrison, I need you to stall the estate transfer. Just for 24 hours. He nodded grimly. I'll file some paperwork. Technical errors that need reviewing. But Emma, be careful. If what this diary suggests is true. I know, I said quietly. My sister is capable of murder. Back at my hotel, messages waited from both my contacts. Sarah, the art authenticator, confirmed my suspicions about the painting. The private investigator's findings about Sterling Bank were even more explosive. I took a deep breath and made one final call to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. That night, I waited until 3 a.m. before returning to the estate. The security code hadn't been changed. Madeline always did underestimate me. The house was dark, empty except for the furniture Madeline hadn't yet moved. In the library, Moonlight filtered through the tall windows, illuminating the painting of roses. With trembling fingers, I felt along its heavy gilt frame. There, a slight catch, a hidden spring. The painting swung away from the wall like a door, revealing a small safe built into the wall behind it. I smiled, remembering all those Sunday afternoons when Grandma taught me to paint roses. She hadn't just been teaching art. She'd been showing me exactly where this safe was located. The combination was simple: my birthday, not Madeline's. She'd been born 2 minutes later. This was how Grandma had always told us apart, by remembering who came first. Inside the safe lay a stack of documents: bank records, surveillance photos, and a USB drive. But most importantly, there was another will. The real will, dated just 3 days before Grandma's death, with a letter attached. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I've discovered what Madeline has been doing at Sterling Bank. The stolen money, the fake accounts, all of it. I've gathered proof, but she knows I know. I fear what she might do. I'm leaving everything to you because you're the only one who understands what truly matters. The money, the house, they're just things. But integrity, truth, justice, these are the real Blackwood legacy. All my love, Grandma Catherine. P.S. Give the USB drive to the FBI. They'll know what to do. At that moment, lights flooded the library. Madeline stood in the doorway, her face twisted with rage. "How did you know?" she demanded. "Because I paid attention," I said calmly, despite my pounding heart. "All those Sunday teas you missed. All those boring family stories you ignored. Grandma wasn't just sharing memories. She was leaving clues." "Give me those papers," she snarled, stepping forward. "It's too late," I replied. "The FBI already has copies of everything. They're probably at Sterling Bank right now, seizing records of all your offshore accounts." Her face went pale. "You're lying." "Am I? Check your phone." As if on cue, her phone buzzed. Her hands shook as she read the message. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "Yes," I said quietly. "It's over, Madeline. The fraud, the fake will, and—" I held up Grandma's diary. The truth about her death. She lunged for me, but never reached me. FBI agents emerged from the shadows, where they'd been waiting all along. I watched as they led my sister away in handcuffs, her perfect composure finally shattered. The aftermath was a whirlwind of headlines. Bain K-I-H-E-R, A-R-E-S-T-D, F-O-R-F-R-A-U-D, and M-U-R-D-E-R. T-W-I-N sisters, inheritance battle, R-E-V-A-L, D-A-D-Y-S-K-G, Sterling Bank K-S-K-A-D-A-L, Bly L-L-H-O-N-S, and C-L-I-E-N-T Philandes missing. The truth came out quickly after that. Madeline had been stealing from clients for years, hiding the money in offshore accounts. When Grandma discovered her scheme, Madeline arranged the accident, not realizing Grandma had already documented everything. The forged will was just her final attempt to gain control of all evidence against her. She never imagined the real proof would be hidden behind a simple painting of roses. 1 year later, I stood in the library again, now restored to its former glory. Madeline was serving 20 years for fraud and murder. The stolen money had been returned to Sterling Bank's clients, and Grandma's real will had been executed exactly as she intended. I kept the house, turning part of it into an art gallery showcasing young artists. The painting of roses still hung in its place of honor, no longer hiding secrets, but serving as a reminder. Sometimes justice blooms in unexpected places. Agnes still worked as housekeeper, now more family than employee. Mr. Harrison helped manage the charitable foundation I'd established with half of my inheritance, supporting arts education for underprivileged children. "Your grandmother would be proud," he told me one afternoon, watching local kids take art lessons in what used to be the formal dining room. I smiled, touching the locket I now wore, the one Grandma had always worn during our Sunday teas. Inside was a tiny painted rose, a reminder that beauty and truth go hand in hand. "She knew," I said softly. "She knew that someday the truth would come out. That's why she left all those clues, all those little breadcrumbs for me to follow." "And Madeline?" he asked. "Do you ever visit her?" I shook my head. Some twins grow apart. Some were never truly connected to begin with. She chose her path, just as I chose mine. Later that evening, I sat in Grandma's library, my library now, and opened her diary to the last page. Below her final entry, I had added my own. "Dear Grandma, justice has been served. The roses still bloom, the truth still shines, and your legacy lives on. Not in money or property, but in the lessons you taught me, that art can reveal truth, that patience defeats greed, and that real wealth isn't counted in dollars, but in integrity. Thank you for showing me the way. Love always, Emma." Outside, the sun set over the Berkshire Hills, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Sometimes karma doesn't just strike. It blooms, slowly and surely, like flowers in an eternal garden. The day I was kicked out, it was raining. Not the gentle spring rain that nurtures flowers, but the kind that stings your skin and soaks through your clothes in seconds. I stood there, my hastily packed duffel bag getting heavier by the minute as water seeped into the fabric. "You're a disappointment, Oliver." My father's words cut through the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement. "A complete failure." My mother stood behind him in the doorway, arms crossed, her face a mask of disapproval. The same face she'd worn when I told them I wanted to study computer engineering instead of taking over their precious Mason Industries. "All these years of grooming you for the company," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "And you throw it away for what? Some foolish dream of creating apps." I was 18, fresh out of high school, and my crime was refusing to attend the business school they'd chosen. I had different plans, different dreams. I wanted to build something of my own, not inherit their legacy. "If you walk away now," my father's voice turned cold, "don't ever come back. You'll get nothing from us. No support, no inheritance, nothing." I adjusted the strap of my bag and met his gaze. "Fine." That one word seemed to shock them both. They had expected me to break, to give in like I always had before. But something had changed in me. Maybe it was the years of being compared to my perfect older brother James, or maybe it was just time to stop being the person they wanted me to be and start being myself. I turned and walked away, each step taking me further from the luxury mansion I'd grown up in. Their final words followed me down the driveway. "You'll fail, Oliver. You'll come crawling back when you realize how worthless your dreams are." But I didn't look back, not even once. The first few months were exactly as hard as they'd probably hoped. I crashed on my best friend Mike's couch, worked 2 jobs, one at a local electronics store during the day and delivering pizzas at night. Every spare moment was spent learning, coding, developing my skills. Mike's tiny apartment became my sanctuary. While my family attended galas and business functions, I sat cross-legged on a worn-out couch, surrounded by programming books and energy drink cans, my laptop balanced precariously on my knees. "You're insane, man," Mike would say, watching me code until sunrise. But the good kind of insane. He didn't understand the technical aspects of what I was building, but he understood drive. He understood the need to prove yourself. 6 months in, I had my first breakthrough. A small app I developed caught the attention of a local tech startup. They didn't offer me millions, but they offered something more valuable: a chance. A junior developer position with flexible hours so I could continue working on my own projects. I took it without hesitation. My family's company, Mason Industries, was all about traditional manufacturing, tools, machinery, the kind of business that had made my grandfather rich in the 1960s. They couldn't understand why anyone would want to work with invisible products like software and apps. But I saw the future. While they were stuck in their old ways, I was learning about artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the endless possibilities of the digital age. 1 year turned into 2, then 3. I moved from the junior developer position to lead developer at another company. My first major app, a revolutionary project management tool, started gaining traction. I wasn't rich yet, but I was making enough to rent my own small apartment and fully focus on my work. During those years, I heard snippets about my family through mutual acquaintances. James had taken my place as the heir apparent to Mason Industries. My parents hosted charity galas and business dinners, maintaining their image as pillars of the business community. They had effectively erased me from their narrative. That was fine by me. I was building my own story. The turning point came 4 years after that rainy night. My project management app had evolved into something bigger, an entire suite of business tools powered by artificial intelligence. I called it Novatech Solutions. When the venture capital offers started coming in, I was ready. I had learned enough about business to know my worth. The first round of funding valued Novatech at $20 million. 6 months later, that value had tripled. I moved into a penthouse apartment in the city's tech district, but kept living relatively simply. Every dollar I earned went back into developing better products, hiring the best talent, expanding our reach. Mike, who had supported me through those early days, became my head of operations. "Look at us now," he'd say, standing in our sleek office overlooking the city. From delivering pizzas to delivering cutting-edge tech solutions. Mike, who had supported me through those early days, became my head of operations. "Look at us now," he'd say, standing in our sleek office overlooking the city. From delivering pizzas to delivering cutting-edge tech solutions. I smiled at his comments, but never let success go to my head. I remembered too well what it felt like to stand in the rain with nothing but a duffel bag and determination. Then came the day that changed everything. I was in my office, reviewing potential acquisition targets, companies whose technology could enhance Novatech's capabilities. A familiar name caught my eye: Mason Industries. My family's company had been struggling. While I had been embracing the future, they had stubbornly clung to the past. Their stock price had been declining steadily for the past year. They needed a digital transformation to survive, but my father was too proud to admit it. I dug deeper into their financials. The situation was worse than I thought. They needed capital, and they needed it fast. About $5 million would keep them afloat long enough to modernize their operations. As I sat there, staring at the numbers on my screen, my phone rang. The number was one I hadn't seen in 7 years. but I would never forget it. My father's number. I let it ring 3 times, each ring echoing the words he had spoken that rainy night. "You're a disappointment, Oliver. A complete failure. Don't ever come back." On the 4th ring, I picked up. "Hello, Father," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I've been expecting your call." The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought he might have hung up. Then I heard him clear his throat. "Oliver," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city skyline. "Yes," I replied. "I believe we do." The Mason Industries headquarters hadn't changed in 7 years. The same imposing granite facade, the same golden letters announcing the company name, the same stern-faced security guards at the entrance. But I was different. As I walked through the lobby, memories flooded back. Summer afternoons spent watching my father in board meetings, weekends when he dragged me along to inspect the factory floor, endless lectures about responsibility and legacy. "Mr. Mason?" The receptionist's eyes widened slightly as she recognized my face. "Your father is expecting you in the main conference room." I nodded, adjusting my Italian suit. Not out of nervousness, those days were long gone, but out of habit. Success had taught me the importance of appearances, though unlike my family, I knew they were just that, appearances. The elevator ride to the top floor gave me time to review the numbers in my head. Mason Industries was hemorrhaging money. Their quarterly reports showed a 60% decline in profits. Their stock had plummeted from $85 to $12 per share. They needed more than just capital. They needed a complete overhaul. The conference room doors opened to reveal a scene I couldn't have imagined 7 years ago. My father, the mighty Richard Mason, looked older, tired. His perfectly tailored suit couldn't hide the weight he'd lost. My mother sat beside him, her usually impeccable makeup slightly smudged, as if she'd been rubbing her eyes. James, my older brother, stood by the window. He'd gained weight, his face puffy from too many business dinners and too much stress. The golden boy didn't look so golden anymore. "Oliver," my father said, standing up. He extended his hand, then seemed to think better of it and pulled it back. "Thank you for coming." I took a seat at the opposite end of the table, placing my briefcase carefully in front of me. "Let's skip the pleasantries," I said. "I've seen your numbers." James turned from the window, his face flushing. "You've been spying on us?" "Publicly available information, brother. Your company's decline isn't exactly a secret." My mother flinched at the word your, not our. "Not anymore." "We've had some setbacks," my father began, his voice taking on the smooth tone he used for difficult business negotiations. "The market has been unpredictable, and our traditional customer base. Your traditional customer base is shrinking because you've refused to adapt." I cut in. "The world is digital now. Manufacturing isn't just about machinery anymore. It's about smart factories, IoT integration, predictive maintenance using AI." James scoffed. "And I suppose you're the expert now, with your little computer programs." I pulled out my phone, opened a specific app, and projected Novatech's latest quarterly report onto the conference room screen. The numbers spoke for themselves. $500 million in revenue, 300% year-over-year growth, contracts with Fortune 500 companies. The room fell silent. You're the founder of Novatech," my mother whispered. "CEO and majority shareholder," I confirmed. Those little computer programs have built a company worth more than Mason Industries was even in its prime. My father's face had gone pale. He remembered, I was sure, every dismissive word he'd ever said about technology, every time he'd called my dreams worthless. "We need $5 million, he said finally, his voice hoarse. "A bridge loan to implement necessary modernization changes. We can offer favorable terms." "I'm not interested in a loan," I interrupted, opening my briefcase. "I'm interested in acquisition." The word hung in the air like a thundercloud. James pushed away from the window, his face contorted with anger. "Acquisition? You want to buy us out? Your own family?" "Family?" I let out a quiet laugh. "Wasn't it you, James, who told everyone at your engagement party that you were an only child? That you'd never had a brother?" He took a step back, caught off guard that I knew about that. "Oliver," my mother began, her voice taking on the pleading tone she used to use when trying to make me study business textbooks instead of programming. "Surely we can work something out. We're still your parents." "No," I said firmly. "You lost the right to call yourselves that 7 years ago. This is purely business." I pulled out a thick contract from my briefcase and placed it on the table. "Novatech will acquire Mason Industries for $25 million. That's more than generous given your current market value. We'll retain most of the workforce, modernize the facilities, and integrate your manufacturing expertise with our digital solutions." "And what about us?" James demanded. "What happens to the family?" I met his gaze steadily. "You'll be offered a position in the newly formed division. A junior position where you'll have to earn any promotions based on merit, not bloodline. Father can serve as an advisor during the transition, after which he'll retire with a comfortable pension. Mother's social connections might be useful for client relations, but that's up to her." My father's hands were trembling slightly as he reached for the contract. "And if we refuse?" "Then I leave, and you can try explaining to your shareholders why you turned down a lifeline. Your stock will probably drop another 50% by next week. You might last another month. Maybe 2. Then bankruptcy." The room fell silent except for the sound of paper rustling as my father slowly turned the pages of the contract. "You planned this," James accused, his voice bitter. "All these years, you were just waiting for us to fail." I stood up, straightening my jacket. "No, James. I was too busy succeeding to waste time waiting for your failure. You did that all on your own." "How long?" my mother asked suddenly. "How long do we have to decide?" I picked up my briefcase. "The offer expires at midnight." "Not a minute later." "Midnight?" My father's voice rose. "That's impossible. We need time to review with our lawyers, to consider other options." "You don't have other options," I said calmly, "and you don't have time. 7 years ago, you gave me 5 minutes to decide my entire future. I'm giving you 12 hours. I'd say that's more than fair." I walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing." I turned back to face them. "When you sign, and you will sign, I want you to use the same pen you used to sign my college rejection letter, the one with the Mason Industries logo. I believe it's still in your desk drawer, Father." The look of shock on his face told me I was right. He remembered that pen, remembered using it to dash my dreams all those years ago. "How did you?" "I'll be back at 11:45 p.m. I cut him off. "Try not to be late. Time is money, after all. Isn't that what you always taught me?" With that, I walked out, leaving them with their shattered pride and a contract that would change everything. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the polished metal and saw something I'd never seen in this building before: a winner. The next 12 hours would be interesting. Very interesting indeed. 11:43 p.m. The city lights sparkled below the Mason Industries conference room like scattered diamonds on black velvet. I stood at the same window where James had stood that morning, watching my reflection superimposed over the nighttime skyline. The door opened behind me, right on time. My father entered first, followed by my mother and James. They looked exhausted, as if they'd aged years in just 12 hours. I noticed my father clutching a small leather case, the one he kept his prized pens in. "The board has approved the acquisition," he said, his voice rough, unanimously. I turned slowly, taking in their defeated postures. I expected nothing less. After all, what choice did they have? James slumped into a chair, loosening his tie. "You've won, Oliver. Is that what you wanted to hear?" "No," I replied calmly. "What I want to hear is the truth. From all of you." My mother stepped forward, her designer dress wrinkled from a day of tense meetings. "The truth about what? About why you really pushed me away. It wasn't just about the business school, was it?" The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, my father sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. "You were too much like him," he said quietly. "Like your grandfather." That wasn't what I'd expected. "Grandfather?" "The one who started Mason Industries." My father nodded, sinking into a chair. Harold Mason was a visionary. He saw the future coming before anyone else. In the 1960s, when everyone was doing things the old way, he modernized, automated, took risks. The board thought he was crazy. Even his own father called him a fool. He pulled out the pen case, opening it with trembling fingers. But he proved them all wrong. Built this company from nothing into an empire. And you, he looked up at me. You have that same look in your eyes. That same drive. It terrified me. Because you're not like him, I finished, understanding dawning. You're a maintainer, not a builder. You wanted the company to stay exactly as it was when you inherited it. I wanted stability, he whispered. Safety. When you started talking about technology, about changing everything, I saw my father in you. And I remembered how scared I was every time he took another risk, launched another venture. My mother touched his shoulder gently. We thought we were protecting you, Oliver. And James. James was more like your father. Cautious. Reliable. Boring. James interjected with a bitter laugh. That's what you mean, isn't it? I was the safe choice. The one who wouldn't rock the boat. I walked to the conference table, spreading my hands on its polished surface. And now look where we are. The safe choice led straight to bankruptcy. The crazy dreamer built a tech empire. We were wrong, my father said, and the words seemed to physically pain him. About everything. About you. He opened the pen case and removed the Mason Industries pen. The same one he'd used to reject my college plans 7 years ago. The gold logo caught the light as he placed it on the contract. Before I sign this, he said, I need to know what really happened after that night. How did you do it? I sat down across from him, feeling an unexpected urge to finally tell my story. The first few months were hell. Worked 2 jobs, lived on Mike's couch, coded until my eyes burned. But I had something you never gave me at home. Freedom to fail. Freedom to fail, my mother echoed. Yes, because when you're already at rock bottom, when your own family has written you off as worthless, there's no pressure. Every small success is a victory. Every failure is just another lesson. I pulled out my phone, showing them the first version of what would become Novatech's flagship product. This was my first app. Buggy, ugly, barely functional. But it worked, and each version got better. James leaned forward, actually interested for the first time. And the venture capital. How did you convince them to invest? I didn't. I smiled. They convinced me. By then, I had paying customers, proven technology. I didn't need their money. They needed my innovation, just like Mason Industries needs it now. My father picked up the pen, its weight seemingly greater than he remembered. And after we sign, what happens to us really? Exactly what I said this morning. James gets a fresh start, learning the business from the ground up. Mother can maintain the social connections that bring in clients. And you, father. Yes? You get to watch your company become what it should have been all along. What grandfather would have wanted it to be. He pressed the pen to paper, then hesitated. Why didn't you just let us fail? You had every right to. Because that's not what successful people do, I replied. They don't destroy. They transform. They don't settle scores. They create opportunities. Everything you taught me about business was wrong, but everything grandfather built still has value. It just needs to evolve. 11:59 p.m. The scratch of the pen on paper was the only sound in the room as my father signed away his company. My mother wiped away tears as she added her signature. James, surprisingly, signed without hesitation. As I reached for the contract, my father grabbed my wrist. Not roughly, but with an urgency I hadn't seen from him before. Oliver, he said, his voice cracking. I'm sorry. For everything. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at me with such disappointment, and saw something new there. Respect. Maybe even a glimmer of pride. I know, I said softly, taking the contract. But it's not me you need to apologize to. It's yourself, for being too afraid to embrace change. For letting fear of failure stop you from trying anything new. Can you ever forgive us? My mother asked. I stood, tucking the contract into my briefcase. I forgave you years ago. That's why I'm here now, saving what's left of Mason Industries instead of watching it crumble. And us? James asked. Can we be a family again? That depends, I replied. Are you ready to be part of a family where success isn't measured by how well you maintain the status quo, but by how bravely you face the future? One by one they nodded. Then yes, we can try. Not as the Masons who kicked out their son for daring to dream differently, but as the Masons who learned that true legacy isn't about preserving the past. It's about building the future. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. We have a company to rebuild. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, I thought about that rainy night 7 years ago. The scared 18-year-old with a duffel bag and a dream. If someone had told him that one day he'd own the building he was being kicked out of, he probably wouldn't have believed it. But that's the thing about dreams. They don't need anyone's permission to come true. They just need someone brave enough to chase them. Mike was waiting in my car outside. How'd it go, boss? I showed him the signed contract. Mason Industries is now part of Novatech Solutions. He grinned. And the family drama? That's a work in progress, I replied, looking up at the building that would now be part of my company. But for the first time in 7 years, it feels like there might actually be progress. Just remember, Mike said as we pulled away from the curb, no matter what happens with them, you've already proven yourself. to yourself, and that's what matters. I nodded, watching Mason Industries shrink in the rearview mirror. He was right. Success wasn't about proving my parents wrong. It was about proving myself right. Everything else was just details. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, integrating the companies, modernizing the facilities, rebuilding family relationships, but I was ready for all of it. After all, I was Oliver Mason, the failure who succeeded, the reject who returned victorious, the son who surpassed his father's dreams by daring to dream his own. And this was just the beginning.